Another voiceover because the audio got messed up. I finished reading The Housemaid, which is the first Freida Mcfadden book that I've actually read. And I have to say, I liked it quite a bit. The story is about a woman who gets hired to clean and cook for a wealthy family. And everybody is crazy. I read the book because I know there's a movie coming out, and I don't know if I'm gonna watch the movie. I mentioned it to my partner that I read the book and there was a movie coming out, and he said maybe we should watch it. I showed him the trailer and asked him what he thought about it, and he said, I feel like she kills everybody or she kills someone. And I told him that that's not what's gonna happen because I didn't want to spoil it for him. But it's to be determined if we're gonna watch it or not because we don't watch thrillers together and he doesn't actually like thrillers. But that's about it for the spoiler-free version. Now the spoiler-full version is that a woman just got out of prison and is jobless, homeless, gets hired to be a maid and housekeeper, basically, for this wealthy family. And initially, the woman who hires her seems pretty okay, but then as soon as she gets to work, she realizes that that woman might actually be crazy. She forgets things and she blames it all on the housemaid, which the woman who hired her is Nina. And I forgot what the main character's name is, actually. So I'm just gonna refer to her as the housemaid. But the husband of Nina and the boss is cute, and he seems to be pretty nice. So as Nina becomes more and more horrible and treats the housemaid worse and worse, the male interest seems to take a liking to the housemaid, and he becomes kind of like the savior of the housemaid. She's living in the third floor in the attic on a room that has a window that is glued shut and has a mini fridge with 3 bottles of water. This is going to become important later. So she's living in that house for a few weeks. The gardener tries to warn her housemaid that the house is dangerous and she thinks it's because of Nina. But jumping ahead because nothing really interesting happens, it turns out that Nina is not the crazy one. The crazy one is him because he tells Nina to get out of the house after Nina becomes crazy for something. I don't even remember what. And he tells her that Nina changed and he doesn't love her anymore and to get out of the house because the house is his and to take their daughter, which is a little brat as far as we know, and that he's gonna stay with the housemaid. And so Nina leaves, she goes to a hotel room and stays there. And then we get her point of view that she's happy to not be in the house anymore and to be away from her husband, and burns a photo of him and says that everything is okay as long as he doesn't suspect she had a plan. Then we jump back to the housemaid and she hooks up with the male interest. She's staying in the guest room, and she's pretty much just living the life around the house, not doing anything because she doesn't really have to clean or cook for him anymore. And he says he's gonna get a divorce from Nina. And she's reading a book and leaves the books outside of the bookshelf. Goes upstairs because she thinks it's time for her to move into the master bedroom with him. And she's putting things on her suitcase, stuff like that. And he arrives, they hook up again in that room. And when she wakes up, the door is closed, which I forgot to mention, but the door has a lock on the outside, not the inside. And that's one of the things that she notices as soon as she starts working in the house. And she asks Nina for a spare key, which Nina gives to her. And also, we found out, because I forgot to mention again, that the housekeeper or the housemaid found out from another one of Nina's friends that Nina is crazy, like clinically crazy, and that she tried to drown her daughter when she was a baby. So we established that Nina is the crazy one, right? But that happened before we realized that the messed up one is actually her husband, which I forgot the name as well. So when she wakes up and notices that the door is closed, she starts screaming for him, but he doesn't come. And when he comes, it's like night, and she thinks it's that he woke up and the door closed and he didn't realize that the door was closed. But then when he comes back, he tells her that he noticed the door was closed and that he just closed the door because she left his books outside of the bookshelf. And then we jump to Nina, or maybe this happened before. I don't exactly remember because I read this a while ago. But basically, Nina's point of view is that she met him while she was working at his company. And they dated, everything was good. And as soon as they married, is that she realized that he was crazy. Now, she had the daughter before she married him. It happened thanks to a one night stand, but he had no issue with it. And it was a few months after that he locked her in the room for a stupid thing she did. I don't exactly remember why. And he told her that she had to pluck 100 hairs out of her head and they needed to have the root, and he was going to count it. So she does it, but then he says that there's like 3 hairs missing, so she has to do it again. And she stays in that room for a while, and she only has 3 bottles of water in the mini fridge. And after that initial time, it happened again and again and again until one time she woke up and the baby was in the bathtub. And then, as soon as she was going to take her out of the bathtub, the cops arrived. And they took her to a mental hospital because Her husband had called the cops and told them that he couldn't get a hold of her, and they thought she was trying to drown the kid. Plot twist, right? Who could have suspected that, really? And so she stays in the mental hospital for a few months. He visits her. He's taking care of her kid, and his mother is taking care of her kid. When she gets out, now that everybody thinks she's crazy, she has nothing else to do but stay with him because he can't take away his kid. Or her kid, I mean, her daughter. So we jump back to the housemaid again, and she's in the room and she's doing what he tells her, which is she has to lay 3 books on her stomach for 3 hours. And the first time that she does it only for 2 and 50 something minutes. So he tells her she has to do it again. And she's without water already. She has to pee. There's only a bucket. And so she has to do it again. Then when she does it, he goes inside, he has a bagel, and he's talking to her. And turns out there was a pepper spray that was left inside the bucket. So she pepper sprays him, she gets out, and she locks him inside. And now he's inside the room. And we jump back to Nina, which Nina is in the hotel room, and then the gardener comes. And basically, we got the backstory that Nina planned the whole thing. She needed to get rid of her husband. But she needed to do it in a way that he wouldn't suspect that she was trying to get rid of him. So she needed to replace herself with somebody else. And she starts looking for a housemaid that's gonna stay in that room. So she cannot go into the room. And she finds the now housemaid. And she's pretty. She's desperate. She finds out that she actually got out of jail recently, and she notices why she got out of jail, which was the nail in the coffin. So she hires her, and she needs to make herself even more crazy, so she dislikes her. And so he feels protective of her, and he falls in love with her until he kicks her out of the house. And so the gardener, because there was a time when he wanted to help her, and they even got passports and all of those things, but he found out and she has to stay in that room for a while. The gardener knows because one time when she was stayed upstairs, she was in the attic, he looked up and he saw her. And she thought he only spoke Italian. So he told him once, "Oh, my husband locks me in the attic for stuff." And so he knows that he's dangerous. That's why he tried to warn the housemaid when she got hired initially. And he feels very guilty. And he tells Nina that they can't leave her there and that they haven't come out in a while from the house because he made a mark on the tire and it hasn't moved. And the daughter, through all of this, she's in summer camp because the plan was Nina was going to be replaced by the housemaid and she was going to escape with her daughter and get far away from him. Well, he was too busy with the housemaid to even notice. But then she feels guilty, so she goes back to the house. And When she gets inside, it's been quite a few days. When she goes upstairs, she opens the door because she thinks the housemaid is inside the room. When she enters, her husband is actually on the floor. He's dead. He's been dead for quite a few days. And he has a few teeth missing that apparently he plucked out on his own. And then the housemaid arrives. So we find out that the housemaid actually was in jail because her best friend was getting awarded by some dude and she killed the dude, but she beat him so badly that it was not even self-defense or anything like that. So she goes to jail, and that's the reason why Nina knew he was going to be the perfect one. So apparently, she's the reason why he's on the floor, not alive, and why his teeth are missing. Oh, also, I forgot to mention there was a camera in the door, which is not in the door, but there's a camera in the room, which is the reason why he can see what's happening inside the room. And the reason why he could know what she was doing and if they were following his commands or not. And so Nina tells her that she's gonna help her and that she has to leave and to never be there and that she's gonna fix the situation, right? So that we jump back, I forgot to mention, but the prologue was there was a woman that was getting interviewed by the cops and they were asking her, "Oh, so how did you go up there?" And she said, "I heard a sound." And on the inner dialogue, she's saying, "Oh, they cannot find out that there's a body in there," or something like that. Then we find out that that woman was actually Nina. When the cops arrived, she called the cops. The cops arrived. They were searching the room and seeing stuff and whatever. And they were asking her about it because there's not a live person in the attic. That is her husband. And that has some teeth missing. And she's telling them that she doesn't know that apparently he locked himself up there and he plucked out his own teeth because apparently he went crazy. And she has no idea how that happened, and she was too busy that she didn't even realize that he was there. So when she heard a sound, she went upstairs and she found him. And that's when she called the cops. And the housemaid was outside because they had given her a few days off. So there was nobody in the house and she was away at summer camp. And so it seems like the cops don't believe her. But lucky her. Turns out her husband had had a fiance before her that had broken up with him for the wedding. And that fiance of his is actually the detective's daughter. So he tells her, Nina, that that is his daughter and that he never exactly found out why his daughter was so afraid of him and why she changed afterwards or what he did to her. So that's the reason why Nina got away. And then we jump back to the funeral where we have Nina who is not crying. We have the daughter who is with the gardener because she feels hungry. And then we find out that her mother in law dresses in white. We actually found out a little bit before because he wanted Nina to always dress in white and they wanted her daughter to always wear pretty dresses. So while they're speaking, her mother-in-law tells her, I always told him that he needed to floss his teeth and that if he didn't, somebody would pluck them out. And that she's very glad that Nina followed that through. And so we find out that the reason why he's crazy is because of his mother. Plot twist again. Then we jump back to the end where Nina and her daughter are living in California and the housemaid has been recommended for another job. And this woman is interviewing her and she notices that she has bruises and marks on her neck and stuff, and it appears that her husband is hurting her. And she asks her, can you help me? And Nina, not Nina, but the housemaid says, I think I can. And that's how we end. So we suspect that in the next book, she's going to be helping this woman the same way she helped Nina or something similar, getting rid of the husband. But I have a few thoughts. So there's been quite a few plot twists, right? And one of the things that you're going to be hearing about a lot of this book is that it's very predictable. And it was. I don't know if it's because I've been reading for quite a while or because I have read some thrillers before that I knew that I wasn't meant to be trusting the person that they were trying to pin it on. Like I knew Lena was maybe not that crazy as everybody thought. I knew that the one who was meant to be trustworthy, which was her husband, was not exactly trustworthy. I suspected as much. I didn't know exactly how that was going to be handled, how it was going to come out that he was crazy or how crazy he was, like what he was going to do. I had no idea that the gardener and Nina had a thing going on, although I think I suspected a little bit. I really did thought her daughter was a brat. That's one of the things that were mentioned quite a bit. I suspected his mother because she was dressed in white, that he got it from her. I didn't know that the housemaid had killed or unalived someone, but I also suspected as much. Well, not really, no. Actually, that one I didn't suspect. Well, actually, yeah. I knew had done something really bad. Maybe unalive someone, or maybe someone got unalived accidentally. I didn't know if she had wanted that to happen or if it was an accident that it happened. And you're going to be hearing that a lot. I personally did not dislike that it was predictable because I like to be right. And so the fact that I was right was good enough for me. And now that I'm thinking about it, I gave a rating of 4.75 stars because I read it basically in a day. But now that I think about it, I shouldn't have rated that high because it was a very mid book. Like, I wouldn't read it again. And truthfully, it didn't really left that much of an impact. Like, as you saw, I couldn't remember half of the things that I've read. But I think it was a solid book, and I'm glad I finally read Freida Mcfadden book so I can judge it correctly. A lot of people will say that once you read a Freida Mcfadden book, all of her books are pretty much the same. And I can see that because from this book, even though it was one of her most popular books, it felt very predictable. And so I don't think I want to be reading that many books that are on this sort of tone. And also from Alia Simone. who is one of the YouTubers that I watch, she said in one of her on her review that Freida Mcfadden does a lot of telling and not showing, and her writing is very direct. Which I didn't particularly have an issue in this book because it was my first book and I was looking for something that it was easy to read. But I can see how I wouldn't like that as much if I was continuing to read similar books. Overall, I can understand why people like it and why it's so popular, but I just don't think I would read it again. And now that I think about it, I regret giving it such a higher rating. But hey, at least I read one Freida McFadden book. All of this just for them to tell me I didn't have to go to my appointment because my psychiatrist is on vacation until January. All this stress for nothing, for nothing. And I actually made it on time. I made it on time. I don't get this. You know, I had an appointment with my psychiatrist about 2 weeks ago, and we did it. No, not 2 weeks ago. We did it through FaceTime, like through a video call. And you're telling me he cannot get on a video call? It's okay. It's okay. You know, it happens. It happens. I just wish I wouldn't have wasted the trip because traffic is horrible. So yeah. But my partner is free, so guess we're gonna sleep because he works overnight. So we're gonna sleep, and then we may go out to eat or something. I'm so pissed. So pissed.